Coming up on Backchecking the Bolts.
We just can't have a free agent season without Julian Brisebois doing something that makes us question his sanity a little bit, right? He's got to throw one oddball deal out there. It happens every year. It is probably the weirdest contract of the day, I think, in the NHL.
Welcome to Backchecking the Bolts. Backchecking the Bolts is your cup of coffee to get you the latest on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Join host Jason Linkus and the managing editor of Raw Charge, Justin Godfrey, as they break down the Lightning's most recent games and go beyond the highlights, telling you what the box scores didn't. It's time to drop the puck.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the free agency edition of Backchecking the Bolts. Hi, I'm your host, Jason Linkus. In a second, I'm going to introduce Justin Godfrey, but first, we're going to break down what we're going to talk about today. Who did the Bolts sign? John Carlson and company. We're going to break down the Bolts signings. We're going to talk about the Nick Paul trade, but we're also going to talk about who the Bolts lost. Oliver Bjorkstrand, surprisingly, did not take much of a pay cut. We're going to break down everything and some of the bigger signings around the league. Now I'm going to introduce my co-host. You can reach him. You can not just reach him, you can read him each and every day at www.rawcharge.com. He is Justin Godfrey. Justin, there was a lot of news out there right before free agency, and that big name was Zach Werenski. Are you a little bit surprised that he and Don Waddell, basically they broke up at the bar? They came back the next day when he couldn't find another girlfriend. He said, you know what? I'll come back. It just sort of reminded me of a bad breakup. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we all know that couple that, they have the big fight, the big blow up, and then they get back together, and it's only a matter of time until it happens again. That being said, I think they are going to give it a shot. I think Werenski's kind of cooled down a little bit. Maybe he got, a little emotional and, was like, I don't know. I don't see my future here. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to resign, take a look. And it seems like Waddell did have an option, and I do wonder if the Lightning were that option. There was a lot of smoke around that. They seemed like a good fit as far as being a team on the East Coast that's in contention, which was something that he was looking for. And then when it simmered back down, sometimes as a player and a GM, sometimes you just have to clear your heads, get everybody in that room together, and kind of simmer the tensions down, which is what it sounds like they did. And once that happened, I wonder if that's when the Lightning pivoted back to John Carlson, and that's why that deal kind of took a little bit longer than folks were anticipating.
No, I think that is why they signed Carlson. They were waiting to see what was going to happen with Werenski. But I will say this. Werenski still has yet to say that he will sign an extension. We could be at this moment in a month from now, in 2 months from now. The rumors are that he gave Columbus two destinations, Toronto and Tampa. Now, we all know that Columbus has said, we want ready now players. They wanted to make a hockey trade. They didn't want to get a bunch of picks and prospects. At the end of the day, Don Waddell, even though Werenski says, hey, I want to be dealt, Don Waddell does not need to deal him. Werenski holds all the cards on where he goes, but Don Waddell could say, you know what, I'm going to hold out. Eventually, he could hope that Werenski widens that list so he could get a better return. There was a lot of rumors out there that Dallas had a deal in place that was turned down by Werenski. And that makes me think that, one, he asked for the trade, and two, he might be asking for a makeup just because right now he knows that Toronto or Tampa, neither of them will come to the plate with what Columbus will take in return.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think Toronto and Tampa are off the table, just, cap-wise. It sounds like, from the rumors I saw, it was something along the lines of Moser, maybe Connor Geekie, or Sam O'Reilly. One of those ready-to-go kind of NHL prospects that the Lightning have. And it's kind of where it benefited them a little bit, because they don't have those futures that a lot of teams want for their big-name players. They don't have a host of draft picks. They don't have a host of grade A prospects. But what they do have are younger players that are kind of on that cusp, that are ready to go, that could fit right into a lineup. So if you're talking Zach Werenski, would I have been mad about JJ Moser heading to Columbus in a deal? It wouldn't have been great, but I think for a player like Werenski, it makes sense, especially if he's open to extending with you. Connor Geekie, he's kind of shown potential, but hasn't quite grabbed onto that NHL spot. So in Columbus, he would definitely have more of an opportunity to go out there and play 15 to 20 minutes a game. So I think that if that was the deal, maybe with some picks thrown in as well, it would have been a decent deal on the Lightning's end. But like I said, Werenski if Columbus gets off to a bad start, does he reopen the negotiations and be like, this isn't going in the direction I want? Columbus has kind of had a weird offseason where they did re-sign Charlie Coyle. I think they just re-signed Eric Goodbranson today. They are bringing in some veteran parts, but are they getting better? Especially in that Metropolitan Division, which is a bit of a juggernaut with teams like Carolina at the top. Washington, I thought, had a really good offseason, and now it looks like Ovechkin's coming back for another year. So that's another team they got to leap over. I thought Pittsburgh did pretty well with some of their pickups. Not a lot of big names going to Pittsburgh, but they did, grab a couple veterans, and Declan Carlisle being one of them. And they're going to be a tough team. So where's Columbus at right now, and does that affect Werenski's decision moving forward?
Where I thought it didn't make a whole lot of sense for Columbus, and this is where I differ a little bit. I get Mosier. Perfect. But the Lightning really don't have a ready-made younger player who you could say, I'm going to throw into my top 9 and be a contributor right away. Sam O'Reilly still has yet to play professional hockey. We don't know if he's going to be here this year. Most likely he's going to start the year in Syracuse. He's an intriguing prospect. But Connor Geekie has been up a couple years. Last year was a little bit of the back and forth. But does he truly project to be a top 9 forward? That is where, if the Lightning had that younger player who you could say, hey, I view him as a second or a third line player, I think that's the kind of player that could get this kind of deal over the hump. Maybe, maybe not, but it was interesting. A lot of the talk and a lot of the people were waiting on Werenski, as you'd mentioned. And Justin, who did the Bolts sign? Well, when they couldn't get Werenski, they got John Carlson, a 2-year deal, $17 million, $8.5 million against the cap. I love the move. Replaces Darren Radish. You don't have the term of the Radish contract. What was your thought?
Love the term. Love the amount. I was thinking it would be at the very minimum $9.5 million. I think Carlson could have demanded that. Yes, there is the Florida bonus of the no state tax, and it does. I think math wise, it makes this about a $10 million deal in some other cities. I love the term. I love the 2 years. I know we were talking the last podcast about would we go 4, and that was the breaking point for me. I honestly thought it would be somewhere around 3 years. 10 million was kind of what I was zoning in on, but I think he really wants to play in Tampa. I think he sees it as the type of system where he can thrive in. He's going to get power play time. He's going to be probably on the top pairing. I just published an article about what the roster kind of looks like after day 1 of free agency. I had him paired with Moser. I think he drops right into that Radish spot on the top pairing, and then you figure it out from there. So it's a good fit for him. It's a good fit for the Lightning. It lines up with where Vasilevsky becomes a free agent now, and that's always where I've kind of drawn the line as far as what is the Lightning's window. I think it's tied directly to Andre Vasilevsky and how he's playing. So if over the next 2 years he kind of falls back a little bit and the Lightning don't re-sign him, now you have a ton of cap opening up, and I think that's when you begin your rebuild. And it also lines up with Zach Werenski, honestly. 2 years left on his deal. So if he goes to free agency after a while, hey, maybe would they go after Werenski if they are still, building, trying to extend that window. So I love the deal. We're going to see how he does. He's not the most responsible defensive player on the planet, but he has that skill that you can't teach, which is to take the puck from your end of the ice to the other end and set up, an attack. He can still skate. He's 36, 37, whatever, something like that. So a lot of people are like, oh, look at all the old people on the Lightning, but this kid is probably the best defensive skater in the system, not named Max Broshev. So he has something that the Lightning needed, and it's going to be fun to watch him play. So we'll see if it works, but I love the deal.
Well, Carolina actually made a trade with Anaheim to get the negotiating rights for Carlson. They had a few days before free agency started on July the 1st. You had mentioned Tampa being that preferred destination. The fact that Carolina traded for those rights and could not sign him, I think that proves that Tampa was the destination in his mind all along. Now, they weren't done yet. They went to Chicago. Ilya Mikheyev, he signs a 4-year deal, $15.4 million. That's $3.85 million against the cap. Justin, initial thoughts on this one? Where do you think he slots in the third line?
That's why I have him starting. I think he's got some second line potential. He scored 18 goals last year. I think 16 of them came at even strength, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see him getting a lot of power play time, to be honest. One of the odd things is he is a left-hand shot, which the Lightning have more than enough of right now. I think they're going to ask him, hey, play your best at 5-on-5. Give us some penalty killing time. He is really dangerous on shorthanded. I get 2 shorthanded goals last year, I believe. He's one of these guys who can fly up and down the ice. He's got some size to him. I really like the signing. It would have been a great signing if he was a right-handed shot. He does play on the off wing. He plays on the right side. I think he's going to fit in on that third line. Maybe a little Holmberg, Gord, Mikheyev action, which is going to be a pain to play against, and he gives that line a little bit of offense as well. Really like the signing. He's going to float in that middle six. So the term is good. The years are good. I think he's going to be one of these quietly. When you look back a year from now, I think he's going to be one of these guys that was a really good signing.
During the playoffs, we talked about Montreal's speed and Tampa's lack of it. Mikheyev, I believe, was their first signing during the free agency period. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it was a back-to-back kind of with him and Beal. But he was the first one, about an hour in, 45 minutes in or so.
Do you think the fact that this guy can skate, he can move, he's going to improve team speed, do you think that's why that was an initial target for Julien Brisebois?
I think so. I think his play at 5-on-5 for, a Chicago team, let's face it, that wasn't very good. His ability to kill penalties and the fact that he can move up and down the ice. Yeah, I think those are your 3 big factors. It makes the team a little bit quicker, which is what they need, especially among the forwards. Same thing with Carlson. He's a skater. He's a guy who makes them faster. And that's something that you need to compete against Montreal, to compete against Detroit, some of these teams that are on the way up. Buffalo is another one, that kind of has that team speed that you have to match in a way, not necessarily just offensively either, but defensively getting back. If that puck does go the other way, can your forwards get back to help out the defense? And a guy like Mikheyev, fills that need.
The third signing I want to talk about, and Justin and I talked about this off the air, but it's Jeffrey Viel. They signed him from Anaheim, a 5-year deal, only $12.5 million, $2.5 million against the cap. Now, Jeffrey Viel, 99 career games, only 15 career points, but this past season, 45 games, 10 points. He brings a physical presence. He's going to bring a fourth line mentality when you go up against the Floridas of the world, who are real physical and are going to look to beat you up a little bit. But Justin, my question is, you don't have someone better in Syracuse to make up your fourth line? Why are you wasting $2.5 million of your salary cap on somebody with 99 career games who's going to turn 30 during the season? To me, 5 years is a long time to have $2.5 million tied up in your cap.
Yeah, I mean, we just can't have a free agent season without Julien Brisebois doing something that makes us question his sanity a little bit, right? He's got to throw one oddball deal out there. It happens every year. The term, it is probably the weirdest contract of the day, I think, in the NHL. Like you said, it just seems like really long. 5 years is kind of long. The no movement clause the first year, the full no trade the second year. Just, I don't want to know who this guy's agent is, to tell you the truth. I mean, and
he deserves a raise, and a big one.
Can you send him an email and can he negotiate for us? Maybe get us one of those sweet deals. Talk to some guys who cover Anaheim, from the old SB Nation days. They really like him. He's one of these good guys. He got better as the season went on. He seemed to get a little bit more comfortable with his role. Like you said, he brings that physicality. And I think the answer to your question is the Lightning obviously didn't think that they have somebody in there that can fill that role. We saw Scott Sauber do it last year. Maybe they feel like they needed something a little bit more. The stats don't lie. There's not a lot that stands out about him, even when you start digging down deep. He's a guy who's played a lot in the AHL over the years. He's, I believe he was undrafted out of the Q. I think that's where he
I believe
played
you're
out,
right.
if I remember, that my brief research into him yesterday. It is a super weird signing, but sometimes these are the ones that pay off. A lot of people question the Pontus Holmberg signing last year, and it paid off. Same thing with like Charles Destu. Like Charles-Edouard Destu is a perfect example. This is a guy who basically played every league except the NHL comes in and, has a really good year. I think the Lightning have a lot of faith in their professional scouts. And we're going to see how it plays out. It is such a weird deal. It takes away a spot from a younger guy. It's, he's basically locked in for 2 years on this roster, right? And if it doesn't pan out, it's going to be one of those that you look back and question mightily. At the same time, $2.5 million, it's not a huge hit. Yes, the Lightning are going to be, they had the cap space this year. It's going to be a little bit tighter next year once they figure out what they're going to extend Nikita Kucherov for. But I think at this point, $2.5 million, you can bury half of it in the AHL if it doesn't pay off. Is it something that you plan out? Hey, if this doesn't work out in year 3, we agree to mutually terminate your contract. Something that's becoming, a lot more of a habit in the NHL than we saw, I think, earlier, especially when we were coming up. I mean, you never heard about somebody getting their contract bought out to just become a free agent, during the early days of the salary cap. So we're going to see how that plays out. Hopefully he does. Talking in his press conference, he said he really started to feel comfortable later in the season in Anaheim. He did have 2 big, playoff goals. Maybe that, JBB saw the highlights and was like, hey, this guy can score in the playoffs. That's something we need.
Yeah,
nobody else on our team.
TSN.
Exactly.
He was on his hotel in Montreal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, on TSN, he scored.
He outscored half our team in the playoffs, so let's sign the kid up. That being said, he is the type of player that probably thrives pretty well in a playoff atmosphere. He's going to fight for every puck. He's going to dig into the corners. He's going to drop the clubs if you have to. And, he's above average in speed. He's not like a top 90 percentile guy. I think he was in the 60th, 70th percentile as far as speed. So he's not really adding that, but he is an improvement over Corey Perry, right? Would you rather have Corey Perry back for another year, or, a guy like this who's going to give you a little bit more? So I think the fourth line. I'd rather have Corey Perry
at $1 million.
Well, I'd rather have Jeffrey Veal at I think Jeffrey Veal at $1.5 million is the perfect, answer to the question, but it is what it is. We'll roll with it. You got to add a bad contract every once in a while, and and that's what you got from Brisebois this year. So
there are a lot of guys out there who could fit a fourth line, and you don't have to commit the term. Right. You can also go into the season, and if you realize your team doesn't have that physical element near the deadline, you can pick up these guys for a pretty small price. I just think they overreacted. They have bigger needs, preferably a center who can win faceoffs, and that's where I'm going to bring in the next Lightning move, which was the trade of Nick Paul. Now, Nick Paul had a hard time staying in and out of the lineup recently, but the one thing he could do was he could win faceoffs. He goes to Toronto. They get goaltender Dennis Hildeby. Now, I think this is the most important part of this deal. The Lightning actually get some draft picks coming back to them. They get a 2027 fourth, a 28 third. For a team that's used to trading their draft picks at the trade deadline, these are 2 assets that they can use come trade deadline. I think that'll be very valuable. For Nick Paul, you get a fresh start. You get to go somewhere where you're going to see ice time and regular ice time.
We had talked about Nick Paul a little bit. What was his role with the team moving forward? Even with some of the younger guys coming in, I think he would have been pressed for ice time. The face-off thing's going to be a problem, depending on what they do. I mean, there are still a few guys out there that could win you a draw here or there that you could probably sign for league minimum going forward. But now you're starting to look into roster spots, right? Who are you going to kick out? Who's not going to play next year? Lightning are pretty stacked as far as experience. There's not a lot of holes in the roster now after free agency. But getting back to Paul, he's a really good guy. He's a Swiss Army knife guy. He plays up and down the lineup. Everyone says he's a great locker room guy. He's like one of these guys always has a smile on his face. Even last year when he's, struggling to stay in the lineup, when he's not healthy all the time, he comes to work. He's a big dude as well. So, he comes out there. He's always willing to play. He's always willing to do what the team asks him to do. It's going to be interesting to see how he does up in Toronto. What role he plays up there is probably going to be a bottom 6. He's going to come back to haunt the Lightning probably at some point, but, yeah, he was just kind of the odd man out when you look at like the top 6 and what the Lightning needed. That being said, faceoffs are going to be a problem. There's just no way, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to need better out of Braden Point. They're going to need better out of Anthony Cirelli. I thought Cirelli had a really good season to start. I think he was hovering around 50% for most of the season, then kind of dropped off at the end once Paul came back, and probably didn't have to take as many. But we're going to see how that affects the Lightning. Do they just draw up their plays where they plan on losing 60% of their draws and go from there? But you never know. So we'll see what happens. Do they bring in some coaching? Is Adam Oates out there doing anything? Can teach Braden Point how to win a draw? We've kind of gone back and forth on the importance of faceoffs. I think you do need that guy that you can send out there that gives you a better than 50% chance to win a draw in your own zone late in a game. And the Lightning don't have that right now.
The best faceoff man in the organization is probably Sam O'Reilly right now.
Yeah, it's funny.
And I think the Lightning will have an interesting decision. Do you bring him up early, or do you say, hey, we want you in Syracuse for the full year? Because I think if he comes up, he's in the fourth line, unfortunately. I don't see him getting third line minutes. And playing 8-10 minutes a game, I think I'd rather have him in Syracuse, unfortunately.
Exactly. The only player on the roster that was over 50% last year is Dominic James. He was at 50.2% for the draws. It is going to be something that they have to work on. I don't know what the solution is right now. I do have a feeling that Brisebois isn't done making moves. I wonder if there's another trade out there. You have a surplus of defensemen now. Someone out of Max Crozier, Emil Lilleberg, and Destu are going to have to go on waivers. They can't carry all three of them now with who they have on the roster. So if your top six are healthy, one of those guys is going to have to go on waivers. Do you try and trade him to clear up? Do you package a deal with like that third round pick, Destu, and I don't know, Gergensons or something to bring in that center? I think that's your
Justin, I'm going to
spot.
stop you there real quick. Why would they have to explain why would they have to send one person and put them on waivers?
Because you only have 23 roster spots that you can carry in the season, and you can't carry 10 defensemen, right? So you have Moser, you have Carlson, you have McDonough, you have Chernak. So there's 4. Your third pairing is probably going to be Hedman, and pick one of those 3. So there's 6. You can carry the extra one, the 7th defenseman. You can carry. I don't think they're going to carry 2 extra defensemen because you also have to have an extra forward up there as well. So you just start running out of roster spaces, and someone's got to go down. And it's going to be one of those 3 guys.
Julian Brisebois, training camp's over. You have 10 seconds to lose one of those 3 and put them on waivers. Who is it?
It's probably Lilleberg. I think Destu and Crozier have a more well-rounded game. So I think they make it. I think Crozier's the right-handed shot, which he has going for him. Yes, Destu and Lilleberg can play on their offhand side, but I don't think that's ideal. I don't think you want them doing it a lot. So I think Crozier makes the lineup. I think Destu is your 7th defenseman. I think it's Lilleberg that you either trade or try and sneak through on waivers.
Justin, let's take a look at who the Bolts lost. 4 names already have left Tampa. Oliver Bjorkstrand, a 1-year, $4.5 million deal with the New York Rangers. I thought he would probably get 2 or 3 somewhere. But for Bjorkstrand, 1, $4.5 million is a pretty good salary. 2, if he has a good year with the Rangers, he can cash in next year in free agency. For the Rangers, I do like the move. I thought it made a lot of sense. Made a lot more sense than half of the other moves they made. I'm still not sure why they got Marcus Pettersson for a conditional first-round pick. I think Pettersson wants to go back and play with Mike Sullivan, but I did think that was a good landing spot for the Rangers and for Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Yeah, honestly, I hadn't paid kind of going back to Columbus, like you said, maybe on a 2 or 3 year deal, a little bit less salary, maybe something around $3 million. It is a good deal. I think he's going to get a shot to make that middle 6 and kind of get back to a power play role as well. So he may fit in a little bit better in his style than he did with the Lightning. It looked great on paper. It just didn't work out, right? And that's the nature of the sport. You take these chances, you take these risks. Most of the time, the analysis pays off and it works out. just every once in a while just doesn't. I give him credit for never complaining, for accepting his role. He's a proud guy who's a veteran. He's scratched for playoff games. I mean, that's got to hurt. So, but
Yeah.
he never said anything. He always went out when they wanted him to play the fourth line. He played the fourth line. I thought he did everything really well except put the puck in the net. I thought he played with speed. I thought he played with hustle. I thought he was great on the forecheck, played defensive, responsible defensively. He did everything except score. That is the one thing he didn't do. If he had ended last year with 18, 19 goals, the Lightning, I'm pretty sure, extend him, right? He probably stays in Tampa and has that second line role. The puck just didn't go in for him. So moves on. He gets a chance to reset his career, make some late term money. If he has a solid year, starts putting the puck in the net, the puck starts bouncing for him again. When he's got 15 goals by the deadline, he's going to be somebody who's on the move.
Let's talk more about trade deadline candidates, and a guy who's been dealt a lot of trade deadlines is Corey Perry. The old man signs a 1-year, $1 million deal with the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings also signed Matt Zuccarello. The Kings apparently want to be sponsored by AARP.
Yeah.
I don't get this for the Kings. For Corey Perry, hey, you get to go back to LA, 1-year deal. It's another year in the league. At 1 year, $1 million, if I was the Lightning, I think I would have re-signed him.
I think Corey Perry's done. He just wasn't effective with the Lightning last year. Yes, he's got those leadership qualities. Yes, it's a fourth line role. But at some point, you got to be able to get down the ice. And I think he's starting to struggle with that. I think he's starting to struggle with the play in front of the net. He had 4 goals with the Lightning, but I think 2 of them came in one game. He wasn't there in the playoffs. He wasn't kind of that pest that you normally see. He wasn't getting the other team off kilter or on tilt or anything like that. So I just think it wasn't a fit for him. I thought that spot would go to a younger player. It goes to Jeffrey Veal for now, but we'll see how it plays out. I think it's a good move for him. You are right. It's like the Kings are building an old timers roster, but it's actually going to play meaningful games, so it's going to be interesting to see how it works out there. To their credit, a lot of them are 1-year deals. So if it doesn't work out, you're not committed too long for them, but yeah, it's very interesting, especially considering what some of the other teams in that division did.
On a 1-year, $1 million deal, it wouldn't surprise me if Perry's one of those guys at training camp that's told, hey, there's not a roster spot for you, and this could be the end of a Hall of Fame career for Corey Perry. Yeah. Mitchell Chaffee goes to the New York Islanders, 1 year, $850,000. I know you were hoping that they might find a way to keep him. You had mentioned that earlier in the podcast when we talked about the pending free agents. Not a move that's going to make waves or anything, but I think a good spot for him with the Islanders.
It is. I think, he's kind of reunited with Matthew Darsh up there, who I think kind of was a fan of him. And he everywhere he goes, he scores. Like, he is a great AHL goal scorer. I think the Lightning asked him to play a role that didn't fit his skill set, down on the fourth line, down on the third line. I don't think he really ever got a chance to be the player that he can be. He may get that in the Island, he may get some shots farther up the lineup. I think he's going to probably start the season in the AHL with them as well. But he is a really, really good depth kind of forward that you can call up when you need to. The Lightning took a chance on him. He was coming over from the Minnesota organization. He was coming off that big knee surgery, and he had a really good rookie year with him, but kind of plateaued a little bit. So it's nice to see he can get another chance, and I hope he makes the most out of it.
Final move was Declan Carlisle going to the Pittsburgh Penguins, 2 years, $3 million. I thought the Penguins made a puzzling move in trading Parker Wotherspoon over to Las Vegas, which allowed them to re-sign Rasmus Andersson. But the Penguins don't have many left-handed defensemen right now, and Declan Carlisle fits that bill perfectly.
Yeah, and it sounds like the Lightning were actually negotiating with him right up until yesterday. I think through the weekend, they were still trying to find a way to sign him. He was one of these, Group 6 free agents where he just didn't have enough NHL time to earn the RFA status, restricted free agent status. So he was an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. It's a good fit. I think he's going to get some playing time up in Pittsburgh. He's going to have a chance to compete for a role up there. He was probably going to get crowded out, especially on the left-hand side here in Tampa, so it gives him a shot. He can keep making that NHL money, living that NHL lifestyle. So it's a good landing spot for him as well.
Justin, there were some other big signings out there. We talked last podcast about Bowen Byram with the trade to Chicago, signed a $12.5 million a year deal for 6 years. You had Boone Jenner signing 5.75 in Washington for 4 years. But there's two names that one just came off the board, and tomorrow it sounds like Patrick Kane is going to go to Buffalo. But the first one I want to talk to you real quick is Washington and Alexander Ovechkin took a very team-friendly deal. I think it was, $3 million for 1 season?
I think it's a $1 million salary and then a ton of bonuses, something like,
Wow.
I think he gets like $2.5 million if he plays 10 games. It's kind of one of those, incentive-laden 35 and over deals that if he has a really good season, Washington doesn't have to take the cap hit until next year really on it. And I think it's kind of the moves that Washington made that enticed him to come back. I think Washington's going to be a really good team. The Boone Jenner
They're
deal,
going to be tough.
they're going to be tough. The Jordan Kyrou pickup earlier in the offseason, Alex Tuch, the pickup as well. So, this is going to be a team that's going to score some goals. And I think Ovechkin, one of the appealing parts is they're not going to rely on him to score all the offense, right? I think he comes back. They're like, hey, you're not going to have to play 27 minutes. You're going to be basically a power play specialist, I think. Probably get some like second line minutes. I see him around 17, 18 minutes a game, but 6 of it's on the power play. My question is, if he has a good year and gets 35 some goals, 40 goals, you're getting close to 1,000 in the NHL in the regular season. Does it entice him to come back for another retirement tour? So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But I think it's a good landing spot for him. If he was coming back to the NHL, that's the only place he was going to play. So I'm glad he's back for another year.
Another one of the guys coming for maybe one final ride is Patrick Kane. The rumors are that he is going to sign with the Buffalo Sabres tomorrow. Now, Buffalo lost Alex Tuch. They needed a little bit of offense. I'm not sure Kane necessarily fits the style of play that Lindy Ruff has in Buffalo, but he's definitely going to bring a lot of skill to that Buffalo Sabres team. I'm not sure what the term is. Buffalo's got a ton of salary cap space, so they can go and throw a 1 or 2 year deal. But I think the biggest part of this is a homecoming for Patrick Kane. He's a Buffalo native, and he might be able to finish his career in his hometown.
Yeah, I like the move from that standpoint, but it is a nice homecoming story. I think he'll provide offense. I do question, like you said, if he fits in their style, which is an attack-heavy, swarm kind of offense that's moving up and down the ice, kind of a la Carolina a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I think he makes them better with some of the moves that they made. They did lose Alex Tuch. I don't think he replaces that production, but he is a guy that can set up Tage Thompson for 40 goals, right? Especially on the power play. I think their power play gets a lot better. So it'll be interesting to see how he does if he does sign there.
And remember, their power play was pitiful the back half of the year and in the first 2 series. It wasn't until I think it was game 5 or game 6 where they finally had a multiple power play game, but their power play was dreadful the last 10 games and going into that Boston series. Justin, you've had a lot to write about at Raw Charge. What do you have coming up next?
I cool off on the free agency. I want to go back, talk about the prospects a little bit. The development camp is going on this week. So the 3-on-3 tournament, I believe, begins tomorrow. If you're in the Tampa area, that'd be Friday, I should say. So if you're in the Tampa area, it's free to the public. Go out and see some of those young kids play. Kind of look at the footage, see how these new guys that they drafted kind of play, see how they look. Most of the draft class is in. I think the goaltender is the only one who didn't make it, probably due to some visa issues since he is in Russia. But it should be fun. We'll talk about the prospects. Kind of take a 30,000 foot view of free agency where the Lightning stand and go from there. Like I said, we did right before we went to air. We did publish the lineup of how we think it looks come the beginning of September, and then go from there. So we should be getting a schedule release fairly soon, I think, usually the middle of the month, and then break down some of the moves that the Crunch made and go and just keep covering the team.
We are still going to be coming at you with podcasts. We have Victor Matheson coming up in the middle of the month. He is a sports economist, published in the Wall Street Journal, has made numerous appearances on NPR. We're going to ask him about the Tampa Bay Lightning, and do they have a tax advantage in Florida, and just how much of an advantage that is. We're going to talk about the hockey economics with him. We have other guests lined up, and Justin and I are going to be breaking down more free agency moves, where are the Lightning going to go forward. We're going to have all that for you and more on Backchecking the Bolts. Thanks for joining us today. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and go Bolts.
Go Bolts.
Thank you for listening to Backchecking the Bolts. We are free and available on all platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, and Deezer. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. You can follow Justin on Blue Sky at rawcharge.com. You can follow the show on X at Tampa_Bolts_pod, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Backchecking the Bolts. If you're interested in advertising on the show or partnering with us, you can find more information in the show notes or email Jason at backcheckingthebolts@yahoo.com.